You're tuning in to the Black Hollywood Live Network, featuring news, interviews, and commentary on all things Black Hollywood. Hollywood redefined. From Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is Black Hollywood Live, Geek.Nerd Tech, featuring a weekly roundup of tech news and gossip. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host for Black Hollywood Live, Geek.Nerd Tech.
Welcome to Geek.Nerd Tech, the show we break down nerd culture, tech news from a brown and black geek perspective. I'm Joe Braswell. As always, I'm joined by my man Akili Shine.
Yes.
Akili
Shizzle.
Oh no, here we go. Akili Shizzle. and I'm in the booth, joined by the lovely Alexis.
Hey
Torres.
everybody. What's up?
How you doing, Alexis?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to run the jewels.
Oh God, no, you said
RTJ.
it. You
to run her jewels?
Stop
Her
it.
jewels.
How
Run
dare
the jewels.
you?
Not the jewels. I would like to. Never mind.
Stop while you're ahead.
Yeah.
I'll stop while I'm ahead. Again, I'm Joe Braswell. This is Geek.Nerd Tech. We have a lot to cover, a lot to talk about today. I mean, we do want to touch on the whole Sony hacking scandal, which we'll do at the end. We also want to touch on the whole Eric Garner, Black Lives Matter, I Can't Breathe hashtag situation, and really get into that a little bit. But before that, we'll jump into some tech news and talk about this new artificial skin that senses and stretches. Did you hear about this?
I did hear about it.
This feels like technology that like was on its way for a while, but I didn't know about it being able to sense. I knew that the touch, being able to have some artificial skin that would be able to touch stuff, and that you could be able to like touch your iPad and do these things. But the whole notion of they already have limbs that your brain can send signals to, and you can actually move your hand around, but for it to be able to send touch back to your brain, that's weird.
Well, it's super important because you're dealing with a prosthetic limb and you grab something with this bionic hand and you can crush it.
Like an egg.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think, the technology wants to be enhanced in the sense that, our biology is so sensitive that we can feel things like the moisture, all of those things. So to be able to put that in the prosthetic limb is like really futuristic, because then it gives the ability for you to actually operate and usefully in the world. So I think that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, and the most I won't talk about what the number one use of this hand will be.
Wow, running the jewels, I'm sure, for you, right?
Running
No, you did it, Akili. How
running
dare
one's
you?
own jewels.
God, you two.
If you're running your own jewels, you might want to not crush.
Oh.
Have a hand that crushes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry. I don't want
you
to
might have a
show.
prosthetic one of those too, though.
Then you're running all kind of jewels on that one.
If you keep doing that, you're on your way to becoming RoboCop. That's all I'm saying.
But no, this is really interesting. And South Korea is doing it, and pressure and touch and moisture, which is interesting. It just makes me. I wonder about the notion of all right. I wonder.
I hate that word so much.
Moisture.
Yeah, I don't like the way it sounds. It sounds really gross.
I know. That makes you not want to run any jewels. But it's really interesting because it makes you wonder about the technology that allows whatever you're feeling to be to your brain. Like, how does your brain know? How does a hand know what your brain is supposed to feel? Like, what if you touch this and it's like hot?
Man.
Like, what if someone F with your thing and then reprogrammed it, and you touched something soft and it felt like electricity?
How we're wired is amazing, man. Like our creator, whatever spiritual perspective you come from, just to think that how we're built is amazing. Like those small, detailed elements that make us able to function, give us our functionality. They're so key. Things that we don't even I'm not even conscious of. Like we just do it, innately, but they're so important. I think that's what's really amazing, that we're able to manufacture this now.
Yeah, replicate that to a certain degree.
And I also think it's going to be really cool because even with people who do have prosthetic limbs, like, how they have that weird phantom feeling of itch, like the brain is just
phantom limb.
Itch. How it has. I mean, technically, that's what like when you have your phone in your pocket and you think that it vibrates. That's the same exact nerve that sense for an amputee to think that their leg itches and it's gone. So
so it's really fascinating. And so we'll see how this develops and what else comes from here. But it also makes you think that it will allow eventually AI to be able to think of the robots and think of the AI that will be able to. What they'll be able to do in the future.
Yeah,
they can
perform a surgery or
exactly.
Do CPR on someone or run someone's jewels.
Yes, that's the number one application. Okay, so next, Google opens its cloud to crack the genetic code of autism. Now, you have a message for you over there, Mr. Shine, sir. I think this is fascinating and fantastic. So, Google has this thing that they started called Google Genomics. It's this project which is basically using their technology already to sequence the genomes of 10,000 people along the autism spectrum. This is something that has already been done. We've already been sort of mapping the human genome and doing this now. That technology has been around for a minute, but the cost of doing that, like the Human Genome Project is doing this, but it's a $3 billion project. And so Google, because of the technology that they've already implemented in the cloud and other things, and they're running all kinds of other analytics and other stuff and all kinds of algorithms and other things, it's just a matter of reapplying what they're already doing to the human genome. They're able to sequence a genome now for $2,500.
That's crazy.
So, I mean, it's just really, it's fascinating to me.
Yeah, Google's a juggernaut, man. Like, I mean, this is not the first time they've, tried to get penetration into like the health field. So they've dealt with other diseases like cancer and Parkinson's. Yep. But I think, with the power that they have behind them in terms of, the technological power they have behind them is just amazing. They're able to refine searchability. So if a researcher is doing something, they don't have to go from a hard drive, then go from the cloud, and it offers more collaboration between the scientific community, and I think that collaboration propels. To finding a cure for or getting more understanding of why people have autism. So I think it's pretty cool, man, that we're seeing tech used in this space because it's going to only help get us more reliable advancements in terms of finding a cure for stuff. So
this is I find this really interesting because you have these giant companies, tech companies and otherwise, like Google, obviously like Facebook, even Twitter to a certain degree, but like Amazon, who really have to come up with all these crazy efficiencies to be able to run their business as is and keep moving things forward. I mean, Facebook has so many crazy algorithms to figure out things, and they're putting drones in the air and all this other stuff. Google, same. They have these giant, Google centers all over the world, and they're dealing with so much data. It's interesting for these people to be able to. Out of that comes our new technology. People talk about how it's a shame that we don't have the space program, because the space program of the 60s is what brought us a lot of our technology now. But, figuring out how to get man into space and land on the moon birthed a lot of our technology we use now.
Right.
So it's interesting to find out that all that new technology may in fact come from the tech space as opposed to the aeronautics industry.
Sure. I think in this era, we're in the era of data and analytics and so much information, figuring out a way to streamline it and, like I said, propel the research so it can move faster at a more accelerated rate. Yeah. And I think, looking at kind of like the first story we just dealt with, how we're looking at things that are natural and trying to replicate it. Like, in a way, when you look at DNA is the transferring of our life code, and so in a way we're trying to crack the code and figure out why it's doing this through all the data that we're collecting. And I think really that's what DNA is. Yeah. Like it's data collection that's then transferred generation to generation. So this is kind of like the same thing, but just on a different level. You know what I'm saying?
It's interesting. It's just beyond fascinating. So, and keeping that same theme, this next story is also about prosthetic limbs, but it's about 3D printing. And now we're finding a situation where there's something that's going to allow you to actually print your own prosthetic limbs. And it's really it's for children a lot, but it's for everyone. And it's really sort of low cost. And there's two companies.
It's only $50.
Yeah. Enable, like E-Enable, Enable, and Project Daniel are really doing some cool stuff and creating these like multicolored limbs with like these sort of superhero names like the Cyborg Beast and the Odysseus hand, and it really makes these kids feel like they got some superhero stuff. The Raptor hand.
I think what's cool about this is that it's open source, meaning that they'll provide like a template essentially, and if a community has a 3D printer, they're able to take this template and then add on or subtract or customize it the way they want, and so or they could even put in their own design into the system and then print out the prosthetic for their child or for whoever needs it. And I think that's what's really cool, that it's not limited to just one particular type of prosthetic. Like you're able to customize it, as you said, with colors and maybe even different materials based on the design that's already kind of laid out. And that's pretty fresh, because it's providing that for people that may not ever have the opportunity or the finances to go with a commercial prosthetic limb, which is super expensive. And so it just gives more options for people. So
yeah, I wonder. I guess the question I have is, I don't know how this is, what the ethics are on this. I mean, if you are sitting at home and you can print out your own hand and just, you still have to get it fitted. You still need medical attention. It's not like you can just print out the house and then keep it moving.
Why not?
I mean, to attach the hand. I mean, like attaching a prosthetic limb to your That's.
I mean, from my understanding, the limb is not something that's like mechanical. It's not. There's no electricity running through it. It's just something that it gives you like an arm.
No, but these are like your digits. This is like we're talking about earlier with the skin. This is like stuff that you have to connect to your.
See, my understanding was this type of prosthetic limb wasn't like that.
Oh, it's just very much like.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. I was like that was my acting out. Akili's always got to act out stuff, so I'm trying to follow him. Right. I know how you like to act out everything, Akili.
Exactly.
Okay. So next, IBM and Apple are back together for the first time again. Like they're actually moving together. This is. I mean, it's not that really big of a story anymore, but at one point it probably would have been a huge story. But IBM is actually working with Apple to launch a bunch of iOS apps for business. And as we know, over the years, IBM Big Blue has been known for business. They are the business people. Apple is the creative people. They rarely come together. They've been like enemies, basically.
And also, IBM has been known as the hardware guy.
Yes.
And now they're more turning into like the software person.
Yeah, which is interesting because IBM is pretty much getting out of the hardware business.
Exactly.
Because you have other companies doing it for cheaper, or the Dells of the world and other companies doing it. But actually, I never really thought of it's weird because I never really thought of IBM and Apple. I thought of like Microsoft being more Apple's enemy, but it's sort of like IBM was these machines, and Apple were these machines, but together, software.
I mean, you got to think too. Like in Apple's early days, IBM was the one that was providing the chips for the Apple computer. So in a way, there was already some type of synergy, or some previous synergy. So I mean, I can see the marriage. I can see it. I mean, being that they're directing it towards the business community, like it makes sense. It makes like it's a good marriage, because I think Apple's is strong now with hardware, and they need to diversify themselves more with software now. And so I think the marriage is good. They're both titans in each field. So
yeah, I agree. So we'll see what those applications are, what comes up from there. So we're getting some new information back from this Rosetta Comet mission. Finally, we landed a craft on a comet, which we talked about a couple weeks ago, which is outrageous. Which I'm still it still boggles my mind. But now that we're there, we're starting to set up shop and do some analytics, and the first thing that's coming back is we're really trying to get some clues about the origin of the Earth's water. It was once believed that billions of years ago, I mean, this is if you're if not a creationist, billions of years ago, a bunch of asteroids and comets hit the Earth repeatedly, and helped that this is one of the things that help form our oceans. It's now sort of getting debunked in that, at least this stuff's not really happening from comets, because the properties that make up the water or the moisture of the water on these comets are not H2O per se.
Or it's a different form of
hydrogen. Not the same hydrogen.
Right. And so I mean, I think that's really the story. Like the whole point of sending Rosetta out there 326 million miles away to land on this comet was to figure that out. Like, I mean, how did life form on Earth? And I mean, can't have life without water. And so if comets are the source of life, of water, like, let's figure that out. So to find that information, I think is fascinating to know that there's different forms of hydrogen or different components that create a different type of water. I think that's interesting. And then I mean, you talk about like the far-reaching parts of the solar system or the galaxy where these comets actually come from, and there's different ranges in which the comets are different or asteroids are different, and so the chemical makeup of these comets and asteroids are different based on where they are in the solar system.
Yeah, so who's to say that you land on another comet and it won't be the right hydrogen?
Exactly.
You know what I mean, or it's something more advanced. I mean, it's just interesting to think that that's an interesting theory to think that these comets that are traveling from presumably billions of millions of miles away could have sort of like basically the sequence of life, like if enough comets, asteroids crashed on Mars, who knows? In a billion years, Mars could be like Earth. I mean, it's this interesting theory and where are they coming from, and where how does this all work? It's really an interesting theory. I mean, are they fragments from a planet that exploded and they're traveling towards us and then repopulating our planet? It's an interesting, really thought.
I mean, I think that's the beauty of science, that we're able to come up with these theories and try to prove them wrong or right, and it just keeps us wanting to know about our origins. And yeah, I mean, science is fascinating. I love the solar system. We talk about it all the time on the show. Yeah. And like, I mean, this story, when we first covered it, them landing on the comet, and then it's just cool to see the progression of it. And I mean, I hope to see in my lifetime that we figure some of these things out, or we have a firmer understanding of like life beyond Earth.
Yeah.
So
well, I feel like that the way things are accelerating again at an exponential rate, hopefully we'll know something within our lifetime.
For sure.
This next thing is something I like.
I'm sure you do.
It's from the Gadget Lab. It's a wristband that tracks your basketball skills, and based on what you're doing, it says it gives you drills based on how sorry you are.
Right.
Akili. So it'll know. But I know. So I do this. Well, I haven't done it in a minute, but I have this basketball workout that I do. It's very specific.
I gotta go.
Oh, don't leave me here.
Show over. Wait, rewind that. Rewind the tape. Did you say you do what?
I said, I have this basketball workout.
Show me the analytics. Show me the analytics,
dear.
Joe.
I have this basketball workout that I do, that I've drawn up, and it involves like
remote.
Remote. It involves Xbox One, NBA Live. No, but seriously, so I have this basketball workout that I do, and I haven't done it in about 4 years. 5.
Keep going.
Maybe 6. Anyway, I used to do this basketball workout, and I'm gonna get back at this basketball workout. By the way, I'm gonna get back. But the point is that this is exactly what I wouldn't do. This is what I was waiting for. Actually, I've been waiting 6 years for this to come out so I can start my basketball workout. Because it's actually it's a wearable. You do your thing. It analyzes what you're doing. It also, for guys like you who's like, man, I did like 15 dunks in a row. Like, it'll be really, and I can check the analytics. Like, looks like you didn't do any dunks. So,
for the record,
yes,
get buckets, get bricks.
Oh, that's unnecessary.
I mean, I think it's cool. Like you said, the shot tracker system. You put a monitor actually on the net, and you have a monitor that you wear, and then it's both streamed through Bluetooth through to your device.
Right.
And yeah, it's able to pretty much get the analytics of your shot percentage, and not just that, it's able to pinpoint where you are on the court.
Right.
So it gives you kind of like a geo-tagging element to it. So if your shot like right below the rim, you miss about 85% of the time.
No,
it'll tell you exactly where you were, so you can perfect it better.
Right, exactly.
But me, like, I'm shooting half court.
Yeah, it's like you shoot half court. It's like, wow, it's amazing. No, I'm actually really want this thing. So
it's only $150, man.
Stocking stuffer for me, for Joe Braswell.
Yes,
if anyone wants to send me this, I'll take it.
Okay, question.
Yes.
Do you see this technology being used in other sports?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's especially like for quarterback. Well, the most applicable one is probably baseball and pitching, and if they, because this is something that pitchers are always, we're talking about throwing mechanics, the type of release points on the ball, where they're throwing, how they're throwing different pitches. There's always a ton of there's like 3 sports that really could use it the most. Well, all of them could, but you talk about pitching, you talk about mechanics and release points and speed and repetitive and where your elbow is in relationship to where your head is and all that stuff. Tennis is another one where it's a situation where you're talking about when you hit and repetitive motion and all that good stuff and where you are on the court and with all that stuff. Golf's another one. You're very much talking about what your swing's doing now. In tennis and golf and baseball, there are tons of high-tech things that people use already, but they're pretty cumbersome. That you have to like almost wear like these full suits, or they shoot you a certain way, and you go back and analyze a tape. And but it would be really good to have an app for the average Joe to go out there, and do that. And lastly, even quarterback, like even in football, again, same thing, releasing, form, drop, step. So I think, if someone can really crack the code on how to translate this type of things to every sport, they could really have something big. And then I don't know how it works, how it would work in terms of, maybe not the pros, because the pros have so much advanced things, but like a college team, a high school team. You can make a fortune.
I think college has the same technology opportunities as the pros do.
Yeah.
But maybe for like high school, you're right. Maybe for like that tier or that entry level of athletics, I think that would be cool.
Yeah. Our kids like learning,
For sure.
So, I'm really interested into it.
That's dope.
So let's jump over into something a little more serious, which is the latest 2 or 3 incidents that's been happening. Whether it's Eric Garner or the Ferguson situation,
Mike Brown,
the Mike Brown situation. Excuse me, and there's been a lot. So there's a lot of different angles we can touch here. But what we want to do on this show is talk about just sort of the proliferation of the social media and the social activism and sort of the activation through social media and the way sort of this generation, our generation, is finding new ways to have their voices heard and protest and organize and share, basically. We talk a lot of times. We talked a lot about sort of what happened in Egypt with how Twitter and Facebook was used to really organize and start a revolution then about 4 years ago. I'm not saying this is starting a revolution per se, but it really is interesting how, at least on Twitter, like I Can't Breathe has it's been trending like nonstop. Has not stopped trending, right? And so the conversation around that is amazing. But
for sure,
but there's a lot of different angles I want to talk about it. But just
definitely initial thoughts in terms of. I would say it's definitely maybe a revolution in terms of our consciousness and our awareness. Mm-hmm. I think because of technology, because of social media, we're able to see it more. We're able to have more of a conversation, more of a platform to voice. An individual can voice their ideas, and there's more exchange. And I think that's healthy because then you begin to see different viewpoints and. It pushes you to research things and have more of an investigative stance. Mm-hmm. And so I think that propels change, that propels growth because you're elevating your mindset. And I think everything starts with awareness. Like when we talked about different things on the show, like the ice bucket challenge, like it's just elevating awareness. Not to compare this at all to this, but I think that's what when we talk about social media and we talk about using our devices and things and as tools to be able to communicate values and principles that we want to instill in our society. And I think this is, race is such a pivotal topic of conversation as it relates to this country and the history of this country. And I think, situations like this, like it's necessary. It's a necessary thing for us to be talking about it and to keeping it in the forefront of people's minds. And so I think hashtags and sophisticated ways or creative ways to communicate this, I think it's good. It's great.
I agree. I could not agree more. There's so much. So let's just first talk about the sports angle of this because there's been a lot of in the NBA and the NFL particularly, both leagues that are, I think it's like something like 78% and 75% African Americans in both those leagues respectively. There's been a couple high profile things in the NFL. In the NBA, Derrick Rose came out with his I Can't Breathe t-shirt, followed by LeBron. Mm-hmm. In the NFL, the St. Louis Rams came out and did the hands up situation in St. Louis, which was great. What's interesting to me is the reaction, not only from the fans and the base, but also the powers that be in the NFL. And there are two very different reactions. The first one, the NFL did a thing where it was kind of like they did a one-line statement, which, because I remember the St. Louis police were really put out a statement saying this is disgusting and they should be disciplined. And I mean, that doesn't really help their cause. I mean, how about saying nothing, St. Louis police? Try that. But anyway, they said all that stuff, and so the NFL just said no one will be disciplined, which I think is, that's as benign as they're going to get, without sort of saying like they're right, they're wrong, you can't do this, because there's a lot of money at stake. But what do you think about the NFL's response?
I mean, I think this kind of brings us to conversation of athletes and aligning themselves with political causes or being activists while they're representing a brand. Like I think that's why we don't see a lot of athletes being vocal about things that are happening in the world, because of that, what you just talked about in terms of, hey, there might be consequences, financial consequences. They might lose a sponsorship. And not just that, they're signed to a team, so they're representing the brand of the team. So if they do something that's outside of the brand, then hey, a corporate sponsor can pull out. Therefore, they keep the players in check. And so I think that each person has a right to be vocal and express themselves, regardless if they are aligned to a brand or work for a company. Like if it's something that's near and dear to them, they should be able to express themselves. And so I think the way that the NFL handled it as you put, I mean, I think they didn't want, I think because of all the other stuff that's happening in the NFL, I think they didn't want to really put themselves in that conversation by doing anything. So I think their chess move was to kind of be ambiguous about it and not really take a stance, not really take like a strong stance. So but yeah, I mean, just to follow up on what you're saying in terms of like the NBA in particular, like I think we were having this conversation a few days ago. I've never seen in my lifetime athletes take such a political stance. No. Verbally, vocally, symbolically.
I mean, you have to go back to the 70s and obviously the 60s, late 60s. There was a lot. I mean, a lot of folks from obviously Muhammad Ali, most notably, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, very, very notably Jim Brown, very notably,
Tommy Smith and John Carlos.
John Carlos, yes, the Black Power Fest 1968 in Mexico Olympics. Yep. I mean, so you have it seemed to be way more commonplace back then, and then we have this whole era in sort of my coming up, which is in let's call it the late 80s, early 90s, where you had the birth of the super athlete,
the corporatization
of the athlete, most notably Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods and some other folks who when there was a lot of issues that people were wanting to speak out on, they were very, very vocal about saying we are not going to speak out because I don't want to mess with my money.
For sure.
Or I think Jordan most notably said Republicans buy sneakers too. Yeah. And like he has nothing to say about anything. And it's very interesting that we've survived a whole generation where athletes were like, I don't want to mess with my money. And now we've emerged in this very important thing.
For sure.
And you have two of the most highly visible athletes being Derrick Rose and LeBron James.
I mean, now it's league wide. Like last night, the whole Sacramento Kings wore the shirt. But I think, to tie it into the show, like we're in an era now where these athletes not only are visible on the TV, but they have brands. They have audiences through their social media properties. So when they do say something, it definitely reverberates to the people. So for them to take a stance regarding this, I think is very important because they are representing the people symbolically, like. So for them to be vocal or to give a sign that, hey, I'm with you with this, because it affects them too. All because you're in the NBA or the NFL doesn't mean you're not getting pulled over by cops and harassed.
Of course.
So, I think it's very essential and very good for us to see young people. Because most of these guys are still in their 20s.
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
Taking some type of political exercise. So it's good.
And I think it's interesting that I can't be enough credit given to Derrick Rose for being the first, and really not enough credit given to LeBron James, who's arguably the face of the league, most visible person, who then opened the floodgates for everyone.
I mean, LeBron did it in Miami with the Trayvon Martin thing. Yeah, the whole team did it. Wearing the hoods in the photo. Yeah, so LeBron he's kind of
very progressive on that. He's very progressive on that. So Adam Silver, we finally heard from Adam Silver, who's the NBA commissioner, and he finally said something, and he did a little kind of a reason. He caught some heat for what he said, but if you really analyze what he said, it's kind of reasonable. He just basically said, look, what people are picking up is his line where it says, "I wish they didn't do that," which is really not fair. That's not all he said. It's not like, what do you think of this? I wish they didn't do that. Click. Like, it's not what he said. He very much said, "I respect Derrick Rose. I respect LeBron. I respect what these guys are doing. I respect their opinions on the sensitive issue, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, and they have the right to do that, but I wish they wouldn't." And so that's his way of playing both sides, you know, and not wanting to let his sponsors and his owners know that, like, you know, I'm not saying go out there and wreak havoc, you know, or at the same time not letting, you know, letting the players know they support them. I think, you know, as a commissioner, it's a tough spot to be in. I mean, I don't really blame him for that stance.
I mean, it's a tough spot to be in. I agree with that, but I think coming off the last year with the, you know, the Donald Sterling stuff, and, you know, what he did with that, and just in terms of how that affected players and how that affected, you know, people, how that was also like a racial thing that affected culture. Like, I think that, I mean, you kind of have to understand that we're in the times where this is happening repeatedly, like something that is representative of discrimination or prejudice that comes out through the media. I mean, come on, we're people. Like, athletes are people. They're not just athletes.
Well,
and they have voices and opinions, and they should be, in my opinion, they should be able to express themselves however they want, symbolically, vocally, and like these aren't strong, like. Strong stances of like, hey, this is what I think. These are like symbolic things.
Yeah, no one's coming out like the S1Ws with a beret and a gun, like marching out. This is a T-shirt. Relax. But I agree. But I have something to say about that. But I want to go back to something you said about like they should have the right. I mean, what about the slippery slope argument? Like, what if one day a bunch of folks came out with T-shirts saying "Free Palestine"? You know, I mean, where is there a line? I know my answer. I just want to curious where you think of the slippery slope argument.
I mean, I can't breathe. Those are his last words.
Right.
So I mean, what is that really saying? You could take what you want from that.
Right.
That's not me telling you what I think. That's his last words.
Right.
I'm wearing that. I don't have a problem with that. So if to juxtapose that to someone wearing the Free Palestine shirt, like, I would have to ask them, what do they mean by that?
Right. Another interesting thing is like they're saying like, well, you know, Adam Silver just wants to wear Adidas. That's all he's worried about. So I mean, I wonder. This is my wondering if Adidas came out with a "I Can't Breathe" T-shirt with an Adidas logo, would that be okay? I wonder. That's interesting. I wonder if that's But anyway, the other question I have with all this, which is more of a statement, is, you know, my take on this is that, like, this is not all things. Sometimes all things aren't created equal. You have a league in the NBA and the NFL separate, but the NBA is really, you know, I think it's like 79+% black, right? African American, and unlike the NFL, like, there's no helmets. You see black faces, black men, like, running down. Like, that's the face of the NBA. So it's really interesting. It's really interesting when something happens in the culture at large that relates to race or relates to black folks, and the nation is tuned to this multi-billion-dollar industry. You have all these young black men. You know, it's almost like, how do you not say something? How do you not say? And if we're gonna say something very mild, like wear a T-shirt, like, it's almost like, it's okay. I can watch you guys run up and down the court all day long, do what you want, but I don't want to hear anything you have to say. But you're watching a group of young black men,
of course, pretty much almost exclusively.
So if an issue hits young black men and they want to say something about it, then that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, stop watching. I mean, this is something that, like, really, if not there, then where? If not there, like this, that is the exact place that should be happening. People are like, I don't want that in my sports. I don't want to hear politics in my sports. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, you're watching black folks. What do you want?
I mean, I feel that. So, you know, the NBA, you know, makes players do these community events, and they're vocal, and they talk about, you know, obesity, or they talk about things that are happening in communities throughout the country. But I mean, this is something that's affecting everyone. This is the core of. I mean, this is the core of our country. You know, the country civil war was fought because of slavery, because of all these things. So, like, for us, like, to sweep it under the rug, I think it's just senseless.
I mean, just play the game, guys.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I think from a social media perspective, like, to see this happen on both spheres, Like not only do we see it on television, but we see it through their personal Twitter handles and their Instagram pages. I think that's pretty remarkable. And I mean, you talk about the younger generation who that's where they get their source of information from, to see, you know, their role model, their favorite player taking a stance. That's teaching them something, teaching these young kids at a young age that it's okay to express yourself in a healthy way. It's okay to take a stance for something you believe in.
Right.
Like, I'm not just about playing hoop or throwing a football. Like, there's more substance to me. That makes me more of a fan.
Yeah,
if I'm a
absolutely.
kid, like, so.
Well, I mean, like, because it's this whole role model thing, right? It's like, we want you to be a role model. If you tell your kids, like, you know, brush your teeth, stay in school, don't do drugs. Okay, yeah, I want to hear that. But, you know, but be careful. I mean, but anything else, like, whoa, that's too black. That's too black. Like, so it's. I mean, look, these are all things that sort of that help our culture as a whole at large and our society at large. So. You know, transitioning to this a little bit is that there's a big, in Boston, there's a big movement as well. Like, and I think that's also very interesting when we look at Boston, a place where, you know, a very racially charged city. Boston is a really fascinating city to me in that it is has always been super liberal. I mean, this is the home of JFK. I mean, this is a super liberal, politically liberal city, but has horrible racial history, and so divisive. I mean, the busing situation in the 70s. This is the 70s. Right. You know, all their sports teams were some of the last to be fully. You know, I mean, well, not basketball because but like. People acted a fool, like if Boston Celtics had, you know, more than four black guys, everybody was going nuts, you know. Same with the baseball, the Boston Red Sox, one of the last teams to have black folks in there, and you know, and hockey's hockey. But this is a town that really has some real, despite its liberal politics, it's some real racial issues. For sure. And it's interesting to see how this is really taken hold in Boston. And we mostly white folks really, you know, embracing the hashtags of Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter, you know?
I mean, I totally agree. Like, been to Boston a few times, and it's, in my opinion, it's definitely a racially divided city. But I think what's really unique about, you know, the Black Lives Matter and the protests that we've been seeing on television is that it's a pretty diverse crowd. You'll see a lot of mix of race and class, like all walking, holding up signs and protesting. And I think that's something that's very interesting. I mean, when you juxtapose it to the 60s, that there's, I mean, especially in New York, rather, I'll be more specific, like to see that groundswell of diversity around this issue kind of says a lot. And you see it trickle down in other industries, like congressmen, Congress people, athletes, like entertainers, like that. I mean, come on, like, wake up. So it's not something that's just about these two men that were killed. Like, this is something that's serious. Like, there's a deeper meaning to all of this, like that I think we have to explore and like bring to the forefront of people's minds. And I think to see younger people that aren't just black gravitating to this issue, it says a lot in Boston.
Well, in Boston, because I agree. I think I touched on it before, but like, you know, seeing you know, these young white kids and young white and adults sort of walking around with Black Lives Matter and protesting. I mean, granted, it's a lot of college kids and everything else, but it means so much in that city because just you know, in my lifetime, they had that huge busing incident, you know, where it was ugly. It was this is in the 70s, and it looked like 1965 in Boston. We're not talking about 1963 in Selma. You know, Selma, we're talking about 1970, you know, 8, 79, whatever it was, Boston. So if you look at some of those images of people fighting and white folks pulling black kids off the buses and all that stuff, this really ugly black eye on Boston's history. To juxtapose against this now, it's really great, and I think bringing it back to what we're talking about here, it just speaks to the millennials and the social society we live in, and like this word being spread and the organizing being spread, and sort of like it speaks again to the youth and the powers, you know, versus the establishment. For sure. Like, you know, if this were all an establishment thing, none of this would be happening. But this is because the internet and Twitter and social media is a youth movement. All the young people come out to support what they really think, which I think is fantastic. I
think that's a key point. I think if you relied on traditional media to kind of like give us a fair analysis of what's happening, I think you would be at a loss. I think the media, even right now, it downplays like the meaning and the subtext of why people are protesting. Like, it's like, again, it's more than just that these brothers were killed by the hands of the police. Right. Like, it's dealing with the crux of the society, like how it's dealing with privilege and power and the history of how this country was formed. And so I think because of millennials and because of the new technology, we don't have to rely on traditional media. We have the Twitters, we have the Facebooks and Instagrams, and we're able to communicate, you know, fluidly, like to our own audiences and communities. And I think that's really the power of social media, especially, I mean, we started this conversation talking about revolution in Egypt, but like, that's the power of it. That's the power of it. That you can say something that's meaningful and it could go to your audience.
Right.
And that's what's happening here. So
I agree. One last thing on this, I just want to highlight one more story because this is one of my favorite one. It's this one where a bunch of medical students. Do you see this? And it was like as a whole, it's CrossFit. So med schools, this is again all organized through social media. A bunch of med schools in Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Los Angeles, New York, Philadelphia. All they did a die-in. So it's all these medical students, basically all in their white doctor coats, of all races, and posing in these pictures with them all lying on the floor of the med schools with like basically like as being dead. That was really powerful for me. Not only because it was multi races, right? Not only because these are our future doctors in the city, but again the organization of it, saying like this is not just a lower class, lower middle class, socioeconomic black folks, kids in the street thing. We're doctors, and we save lives. It's our job to save lives. So we of all people have an oath to save lives, and lives do matter. So to see that, and to see the fact that it's organized through social media really was just really powerful for me.
For sure, I totally agree. And we're seeing examples of this in a lot of cities. And I mean, yeah, like you said, from different socioeconomic backgrounds, like different races, everyone. I mean, I think this is resonating with everyone. And either way, if you agree or disagree, if you feel like Mike Brown and deserve what he got, or if you feel like Eric Garner deserved what he got, I think it has resonance to everyone, and I think that we just got to keep the dialogue going, and continue to educate people. Because I think a lot of people we shy away from talking about race in this country, and I think that it's something that we can't shy away from, because it's so many like disparities and it's so much inequality. Like, we have to continue to bring it to the forefront and expose it. And if it's starting with students in high school, if it's starting with doctors in hospitals, if it's starting with athletes on the basketball court, or congresspersons in Congress, hey, we all have to speak our voice. We all have to speak our minds, and I think that's what's happening.
I agree. I agree. And then I keep saying the last thing I'll say. One of the last things I'll say on this topic, we'll move on to the Sony hack situation, is the last thing I'll say on this is the different types of protests. What's amazing to me, what via social media is giving us new ways to voice and protest. So back in our parents' day, there's pretty much a handful of ways. You can make a sign, you can march, you can walk in, you can sit in, you can do these other things. But this offers all these different creative ways for you to be able to speak out and really unite people across the country. And that's what I liked particularly about the die-in, the medical school thing. It's like one person had an idea, like there's a network of medical schools, a bunch of med students all signed up for it, and then it happened. And that's really amazing to me. So I just want to say that. Okay, so let's move on to something a little lighter, but also not equally as heavy, but just also heavy, but heavy in a different direction. The Sony. I want to talk just about the Sony picture hack. Alexis, I just want to talk about this. We don't have any pictures on it, but so Sony. If you haven't followed Sony Pictures, Sony Pictures Corporation, not Sony Pictures, Sony is the entertainment division, is literally under attack. They have
been attacked.
Well, they are. No, it's current because it's still going. This is like the group responsible. And I
forgot what they're called.
Yeah,
it's a noble name though. It's a noble name.
It's like the Lord,
the Justice League or something. It's something like that.
Yeah, I have it right here. But anyway, but the group responsible is very much. Yes. So the group, I don't have it in front of me, but the group responsible is basically saying that we're going to release something every single week.
Right.
And every week, every day, but every week bombs are dropping.
Right.
I mean, first it was like, here's everybody's information. Then it was like, here's some scripts in development. And then it's like, here's some emails. And now it's really getting worse. And they've made it very publicly. Our goal is to destroy Sony, and we will succeed. And first of all, just at a face value, that's crazy. Number one. Number two, there's been FBI sort of probe into this whole thing, and FBI, the FBI are saying and have said that look, this would have happened to 90% of companies. Like the way that this hack took place, like 90% of our companies are vulnerable to this, which that to me is really scary. So the fact that they chose to do Sony and not do whatever,
right,
Facebook or the DoD or I don't know, is really interesting. But this is all allegedly in response. I mean, there's no real credible proof to this, but the thought is this is probably in response to the Sony Pictures movie, The Interview, the Seth Rogen, James Franco movie, where they go and their whole conceit is we're going to go and kill Kim Jong-il, which is funny, but it is a real person and is a real country and he's a real dictator. And North Korea already said that they consider this an act of war to some degree, and they need to do something or something bad's going to happen, and something bad happened.
Hey.
So I wanted to. So just in a general sense, what do you think about this hack?
I mean, I think the hack. I mean, I think anything's hackable, and I think that if a group of people are strongly motivated to do it, they can easily do it. As you just said, the FBI said most of American companies are susceptible to this type of attack. Like, I mean, I think we're talking about zeros and ones. Like, there's someone out there that can get into something. So, and in terms of the reason why, I mean, I think that theory of the movie kind of insulting or disrespecting, or in a way, the movie is a form of attack to North Korea.
Right.
Maybe that was...
Which I should say they've officially denied it. Right. North Korea said we've officially on the record
denied
it. But go ahead.
But if that theory is true, I can see that being a reason why someone would want to do that. But I mean, who knows the causation? Who knows why? But I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of dirty secrets that will continue to come out. Like, I mean, as we haven't really talked about, but the president, like, saying those things about Obama.
Well, that's when they get to the Amy Pascal conversation with Scott Rudin. So Scott Rudin's who's a legendary producer, and he actually just produced Chris Rock's Top 5, and just a ton of all the. I mean, he's a legendary producer, a ton of stuff. But also the inspiration of Tom Cruise's character in where Tom Cruise dressed up, the dude, I can't remember that movie, but Ben Stiller, Tom Cruise.
Tropic Thunder.
Thank you, Tropic Thunder. Tom Cruise's character in Tropic Thunder is sort of based on Scott Rudin. So there's all these email exchanges between Scott Rudin and Amy Pascal, and they were not favorable. I mean, Scott was very much the whole thing about, he went on this exchange about Kevin Hart, basically saying Kevin Hart's a sellout, and he's this and he's that, and really a lot of everything that Scott Rudin was saying was very much what we already know, and our worst nightmare is what we think white executives think of black folks and black films. It's like all this these movies and those people and that thing is this and that's no money, and he's all that stuff is like, why would we do that? Like, no one's gonna go see that. I mean, he went through the whole rant about Angelina Jolie first, of course, how she can't act and how she can't, she's a movie star, not an actress, and this is ridiculous. And Brad Pitt too, he's a movie star, he's not an actor, everyone knows this. But then that was like, oh, haha. And then when it started turning to black folks, he really went in on Kevin Hart. Yeah. And then that exchange about President Obama, and he's like, I have to go to this Obama thing, what do we watch? And Scott Rudin's like, how about what movie should I talk about? Scott's like, how about talk about Django? Right. Talk about Kevin Hart. Talk about Tyler Perry.
12 Years a Slave.
Talk about 12 Years a Slave. Ha 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 ha. So Amy is really, it's just so funny to see, on one hand, it's interesting to see stuff we already knew behind the closed doors of these executives. Right. You wonder why black folks aren't making movies or getting in there. But
of course,
Amy's now on this whole, of course, Shonda Rhimes was first. Shonda Rhimes was out blasting on Twitter. She's very active. Of course, Al Sharpton, of course, Jesse, and everyone else. And now there's just today, Amy Pascal cannot apologize. She's all over Jesse Jackson.
She don't lose her job.
I mean, I want to respect. I'm taking personal responsibility. La la la. Like, it's a real thing. And I don't know. What do you think about all this?
I mean, I think these type of discussions happen all the time.
All the time.
I mean, we just talked about kind of on the surface level about race in this country. Like, these are things that happen all the time on an executive level, at the highest of levels you could think of. So I mean, when it's exposed through this way, I mean, I mean, it just validates kind of like what a lot of us already think. But I mean, I have two opinions about it. I think one that, I think people's privacy should be protected. Like, I mean, I think it's stupid for a professional to talk like that through email. I think that's dumb. So I think if the consequence is someone hacks you and it's exposed, then you should deal with the penalty for it. Yep. However, if you're talking, at the crib to your friend or whatever, fine, say whatever you want. Like, think however you want. Yeah. Like, if I disagree with it or not, but you're doing it through a professional medium. Like, you're supposed to be a professional. You're supposed to be representing your brand, Sony. Yep. So don't say that you're not that way. Yep. You know what I'm saying? And
this is we're in 2014. Everything is, like your text messages, your Snapchat. I mean, everything really is fair game.
For sure. I mean, everyone says things that are questionable and they might be funny at the time or whatever. I think everyone does. It says things that are just ridiculous at times that maybe have like racial innuendos. Sure. But I think if you're representing, your company and employees, and you're doing it through the medium of that system, like that's a no. That's wrong. I mean, that shows you're too comfortable. That shows really how you think. If you're able to do it through that medium, I mean, think about it when you are at your crib, what you're saying, how you're thinking. That's how I take it.
Yeah, I agree. Very interesting. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see what happens, because they're really trying to take Sony down through the court of public opinion and everything else, and just really by exposing the practices of this company. And
I mean, if there's more bombs, if there are bigger bombs than this, it'll go down.
They keep saying that this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're just getting started. And every day, like, they think like, oh, it can't get any worse. It's like another bomb drops.
Just getting started.
Like, literally, that's how they're rolling. Like, every day, it's like they just release more and more stuff. And the thing about that bothers me about this a little bit, just from a media standpoint, is, of course, Hollywood Reporter, Kim Masters, and Hollywood Reporter are all over it, which is fantastic. Variety now, because the Hollywood Reporter's all over it, are all over it, which I think is a great story. I think it's just fantastic that they're all over it like that. You know who's not all over it is Deadline Hollywood, because Deadline Hollywood was bought by a group in Sony. So Deadline Hollywood did that.
Hush.
It's a group that like expose all the, this is how they were started. It started by Nikki Fink, who now is no longer a part of them. But like, it just upsets me when that stuff happens. When like, like the old Bill Simmons ESPN thing happens. We can't talk about the NFL because the NFL pays us billions of dollars. Right. We can't talk about Sony because they're our boss. Like, even though our whole thing is Deadline Hollywood.
You can't. The same thing as we're talking about with athletes. You can't talk because you're an athlete.
That's a different level of exposure right there. Like Deadline. The fact that Deadline Hollywood is silent is another level of exposure. Like, it's almost as damaging as them actually doing something about it. So anyway, that's all I got. That's all we got for today. Anything else?
Nah, man. That's all. Right. I think that's it.
We're going to take a couple weeks off for the holidays, so everybody out there, please enjoy your holiday. Have a safe, holiday and New Year. We'll be back. Alexis, where can we find you? You still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at atorres890. That's ATORRES 890. Happy holidays, guys.
Thank you. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Akili Shine, AKILISHINE. And what about you, sir?
Find me on Twitter and Instagram at Joe K. Braswell. Twitter and Instagram at Joe K. Braswell. Thank you very much. Good year. We'll see you in 2015 with more Geek Nerd Tech. Brother Jules.
From producers Maria Menounos, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire BHL crew, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us at info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I'm your BHL announcer, Scipio. Instagram me at Planet Scipio. Thank you for tuning in.
Hollywood redefined.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.